Hi, and welcome to the Courage Made Simple podcast. I'm Margareta Kull, a mother of 3 courageous young women and a courageous leader trainer. For the past 20 years, I've helped hundreds of leaders from over 50 countries, from senior executives to aspiring change makers, find the courage to face challenges at work and at home. I know firsthand that leading isn't just about work. Whether it's guiding a team at work, setting boundaries at home, showing up for the people who matter most, or navigating other tough decisions, courage is essential in every part of life. It's how we become the people we want to be. This podcast is a space to explore the messy questions of being a leader at work and at home. Through insights, tools, and personal stories, we'll help you find your courage. If you're ready to move from feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or frustrated to becoming a more confident, capable, and courageous leader, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Before we dive in, I'd love to hear from you. What's a challenge or question you'd like me to explore in this podcast? Send me a DM on LinkedIn or Instagram at Margareta Kull. I'd love to hear your thoughts and answer your questions in future episodes. Hi, Peter, and welcome back to the Courage Made Simple podcast. I am really looking forward to continuing our conversation today.
Thank you for having me back. Very happy to be here.
I've received a couple of questions from listeners that I'd like to hear your reflections upon. And I thought we'd talk a little bit about, if you were to speak directly to someone who's hesitating to be brave, what would you say? And then I've received a question in line with that, which says, some individuals do not feel safe to speak up and are sometimes muted by their managers. How can they lead courageously if they feel their voice has been silenced?
That's a good question.
It is, isn't it? It's a common question that people have.
There's also a cultural aspect to it, that in some cultures you hold back more, perhaps. In some cultures, you're so conscious of losing face, and that could be a manager shutting someone down because they're asking questions that they're not comfortable answering. They don't feel that they have the answers to it. So tying back to what we talked about before, not be afraid of saying, I don't have all the answers, and let's explore it together. But if you're facing a manager that is shutting you down, that's not a good situation to be in. I think is making sure that within yourself, feeling your own self-worth. Making sure you listen to yourself, feeling well-grounded, so that someone else's reflection on you or perception of you doesn't reduce how you feel about yourself. So that's the basic thing. Make sure you have a good network. Do you have a colleague you can go to? Do you have a partner, someone in your life that you can confide in? Sometimes it helps to just speak out loudly, articulate the situation you're in with your manager. You might come up with the answers yourself, and the one you're talking to might have good tips. So just do that as well before you perhaps go back to the manager and see how to resolve it. The walk and talk, the informal thing helps. I think just say, hey, can we go for a walk? I just need to talk to you.
Are you talking about the person who's...
That person, yeah. So the
manager.
person who is having an issue with their manager. So say, go to your manager and say, can we have a walk and talk? Hopefully they'll agree to that. The fact of walking and talking does something to the individual because it helps them to also move through and move forward in their own thinking. I've certainly known that with myself, that sometimes you're sitting at your desk and someone comes to you and you're kind of feeling set. It's a very physical thing. I'm sitting here, I'm not going to move, and I'm not going to change my way of thinking, right? But if someone tells you, come, can we just walk? I just want to get some movement. And then hopefully the individual will listen and then express how you feel and express your thoughts and ask, make your ask clear. What are you asking for? I want more space. I want more support. Um, as a responsible manager, you need to provide that. If they're unable to do that, if there still is an issue, what I would tell colleagues who come to me with issues with their managers to say, go to your manager's manager. That is the hierarchy. That is the normal procedure. That if you have an issue, you try to resolve it with the individual first. Failing that, then you go to the supervisor of that manager to seek support. There are very serious things around situations like this that could amount to harassment and belittlement, and those need to be handled seriously, including any formal recourse. So if someone is not carrying their managerial role properly, the head of office, the executive of that organization will need to be informed and may need to be called on to mediate or resolve. But in the first attempt, try to resolve with the manager and make your ask clear.
Mhm.
You're making me feel muted. You are not giving me space to think or articulate.
I'm also thinking, Peter, when you talk about that in that conversation, it's good to talk about yourself. So you're
Yep.
not just demanding it from someone else.
Right.
It's not someone else who's making you feel bad. You feel bad.
Right.
And something, there is a behavior and there is a feeling, and it's all separate. And then be clear about what you need.
Yeah.
So it's not a blame game that would be going on. And I think it's brilliant, walk and talk. First of all, research shows that we get new thoughts as we move. We can't just sit. That's one thing. And the other thing, just facing someone can be really challenging. So it wouldn't surprise me if many people have been in a situation where you suddenly sit in the car next to someone. And then you can talk about things you can't talk about otherwise. It's good not having to face each other. And if you go for a walk, you go next to each other, and then suddenly the conversation becomes a little bit more open.
Yeah. It's also very hard to be in a lockdown body language when you're walking. It's difficult to
Yes.
fold your arms and legs and be
That's hard.
all restrictive and not let someone in. You have to move your arms. You have to move your legs. And it does something to your mind and your attitude for that meeting, I find.
Great piece of advice. This question that I've received is relating back to something we talked about earlier. I think it would be interesting to hear again. This person is talking about top-down leadership. But then she says, what strategy, or he, I don't know, what strategies can an individual use when there are multiple layers between them and their leadership? For example, I'm eager to drive change in an organization, but have 3 layers above me. Something you'd like to add to that?
Well, everyone is a strong contributor to change. Everyone is hopefully being allowed the space within an office, within an organization to make their contributions. It's unfortunate when those spaces are not created and everyone is not invited to contribute. And if the individual feels that there are 3 layers above them to have an impact, that to me could be an issue. That you need to go that far. Each one of those 3 layers should feel the ownership of change and drawing on their team and the experience and the wisdom and the innovation of each team member, and engaging with them. You shouldn't have to feel that I need to go 3 layers up to be
No.
effective in that. So in my mind, there is perhaps something systemic wrong in that picture. It's too stagnant. It's not as agile or dynamic in our organizations as it should be.
But the thing is, I read it again as you were speaking. It doesn't really say that there are 3 layers of people who don't want change.
So if they want change, then you interact with all 3 of them. You
Because,
start with your immediate layer and you engage
yeah,
and you bring up your ideas, and hopefully then there are other meetings where you'll engage with the next layer and maybe grab your supervisor by the hand and go talk to the next layer and then say, okay, has this evolved? Is some kind of proposal being consolidated of a new innovative step for our
Yeah.
operating model or our processes? And then suddenly you have yourself and 2 layers above you all excited about a new proposal, and you can go to the top layer and say, hey, we've now done our work and we have a proposal for you, a change that we can implement. So it's all about fostering your stakeholders and your partnerships, who to work with, and make sure you listen. And of course, the higher up you go, the more they will demand in terms of it being a mature and well-researched proposal. But you need partners to be able to arrive at that.
You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking, Peter, you know how we all have the need to feel significant, competent, and liked. And those 3 needs are all connected to our need of survival. So many people find it really challenging to dare to feel significant. So we're holding ourselves back instead of doing what we're there to do and dare to own our significance. And then what happens is that then the fear of feeling ignored hits us. So it could be an issue of, if I can choose to see I'm stuck. I have 3 layers above me. What can I do? Or you can choose to say, what a great challenge for me. I'm really going to lead and dare to feel significant. And something really, really positive could come out of it. And you could really learn about yourself on that journey.
Yeah. And the significance of someone in that layer would be that they have intimate knowledge and experience on that task to say,
Yes.
well, this task we're performing could be done differently. 1, 2, 3 layers up, they won't have that intelligence to
No.
know, and they will need to benefit from it.
Yeah.
And it only in organizations where we encourage that kind of thinking, that evolution, those contributions, then you're dynamic and it's changing. But also, if you're withholding knowledge or you're withholding innovation because you want to feel important and you're not sharing it, then that becomes an issue. If the culture of the organization is such that you encourage people holding on to knowledge as opposed to sharing it, then that's an issue. So it needs to be free flowing, that we collaborate. And I don't feel protective of my own knowledge because I'm fearful of job security, or I'm not going to get that promotion. But instead, if I'm recognized for someone who shares knowledge and collaborates and enables others, then that will position me better to move into a new role, perhaps, because a manager will say, hey, this guy, he's really good at sharing knowledge. That other person holds on to all of the knowledge and is really not developing the team. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it does come down to fear, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Look, let's take the last question from the listeners, which is on my favorite topic, by the way. I'm curious if 1 or 2 defenses stand out as dominant for subgroups. Based on Margareta's experience working with leaders, is there an observed difference in deployment of the defensive mechanisms when it is a senior leader versus a leader many levels below in the organization? And what does that look like? This is my favorite topic. It's about our defenses. And the defenses are there to keep us safe. They stop us from leaving the comfort zone, and they therefore stop us from growing and from creating change, which is quite often uncomfortable. It's important to keep an eye on your defenses. And there are 6 main defenses: the denier, the critic, the victim, self-blamer, demander, and the helper. I write more about them in the book Courageous Leader, Increase Your Impact by Facing Your Fears. Keep in mind that we all have these defenses, and we have them all. It's just that we use them in different situations. So we have what we call our favorites, maybe at work, that we don't allow ourselves to use at home, or we have We prefer to use some of them at home, and we use them there, but not at work. Let's go back to the question. I'm curious if one or two defenses stand out as dominant for subgroups. Based on Margareta's experience working with leaders, is there an observed difference in deployment of the defensive mechanisms when it is a senior leader versus a leader many levels below in the organization? And what does that look like? What is your experience from defenses in the organizations? Favorite defenses? What do you observe at different levels? Do you think they're different, or what do you think it's about?
Well, I think it's difficult to say my favorite own defense, but it's my most prevalent perhaps that I've observed is the self-blamer. And I think with that in my mind connects with like being a procrastinator because you want something to be perfect before you take the step. So you keep delaying, you're holding yourself back because, oh, it's not ready yet. It's not ready yet. So you're kind of putting that restriction on yourself to act out, take the next step, as opposed to relaxing a little bit and have it be more of an organic process and own the fact that not everything I do will be perfect and not everything I do will be entirely thought through, and that's allowed. That's okay. And I will collaborate with others to achieve the best results. Then I think we've all come across managers and executives who show different aspects of all of these defenses and sometimes quite clearly. And it's something that impacts the organization or the team or during a particular period of time.
Yeah, I'm thinking also of Afghanistan and Mogadishu, how important it is that we dare to stay away from denier, for example, and actually dare to see what's going on. And it's in the same thing in an organization, like in a business organization. Can be extremely costly.
Also not to procrastinate. So in a setting like that, you don't have the luxury of dragging your feet. Things just need to get done. So you can't sit there and blame yourself too much or demand too much in terms of what you require before you can move on. No, you just need to suck it up, get on with it, and move because there are too many things flying towards you. You'll just be overwhelmed and you'll burn yourself out. And it's not a good thing. I think my experience in those two locations has really helped me to kind of hone that.
If I ask you, what do you think listeners can learn from you about courage? And what would you like them to have heard from you when it comes to courage?
I hope they heard that here's a guy who's trying. He's trying his best. It's a journey, and hopefully a journey of both inner self-exploration, but also one that explores and discovers with others. And in those relationships, in your personal life and in your teams, and with those that you report to, because it needs to be. With the demands of the time and whatever is facing us, we're in all of this together. And this prestige and this kind of pressure of needing to keep a solid front needs to go away because we need to roll up our sleeves and just be more agile with it and with ourselves. I hope that that's what people have heard.
I have a question for you that might make you leave your comfort zone a little bit. We'll see.
A little bit is okay.
It's your choice, it's your choice. When have you felt most alone in your courage?
I think right at the start of my work for the Afghanistan office. As it so happened, I was working remotely, starting out to work remotely from my home country because of the situation in the country at the time, which was August 2021, during the time of the takeover of the Taliban of the power in the country. And at that time, it was so intense. It was so uncertain. It was so troubled for primarily our national colleagues in terms of what would happen. And the role that I was called on to play in human resources was so critical because you needed to support people during that change. We didn't know, could the United Nations and UNDP continue to operate in the country? What would be the repercussions and the effect of our national colleagues given the change across the Kabul and across the nation? And I felt very alone, although I was constantly meeting with people online and discussing and working through things and preparing what needed to be prepared to take action, to do all of these things. But I did feel very alone, and there were times of great frustration because you didn't know what was going to happen.
And you didn't have you hadn't been there for long either, so you didn't have
I'd never
your,
been there.
if we call it openness trust network,
No, I didn't know the people at all. My first
Wow.
day, literally my first day on the job, logging onto the computer from the comfort of my own home, with colleagues who were in Afghanistan and those who were also connecting from elsewhere, was the same day that the Taliban rolled into Kabul and took over the country. So I hadn't established a relationship with the team. I hadn't established any relationship with the senior managers. I didn't know the business of the office. I knew in general terms, but not in specifics. There were loads of questions from individuals that I'd never met and I didn't know the names of, and I needed to
Wow.
respond. So that made me feel very alone, but it was everyone really pulled together
Yeah.
to make the best of it and the most of it.
Yeah.
Senior leaders at the time were very supportive and were very responsible to act. And that gave me the comfort zone to ask questions, to move into taking my own space where I needed to deliver for the work.
And that's the reality you flew into. You flew into Kabul in that situation.
Yeah, I landed a couple of months after and was one of the first internationals returning after the takeover to our offices. And then for the first time started to meet our national colleagues and figuring out, okay, what do we got? What are we doing? What is the change we're facing, which was substantial? And then collaborating and discussing with colleagues in other UN organizations. What are you doing? How are you handling these things? To make sure that we did things responsibly and with transparency and based in policy.
What do you think you learned from all of that? About yourself, I'm thinking now, actually.
People can knock me over, throw me up in the air, and I'll somehow still land on my feet.
Mm.
And then you need to be quick to go from a standing position to a running position and just adapt.
And when you say that, I think what's so important for us to remember is that something happens in us when we choose to trust that I will, how did you express it? I'll get back on my feet.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's also, do you just need to take pause and connect to your inner strength? Recognize that you have something there within you that will carry you. And then sometimes if externally you don't have it, fake it till you make it. And it's
Yes.
just, and just be conscious of that and like stand up straight, engage with people, listen, take the advice of others, and then like evolve into the space that you need to move in. But recognize that there are others there. You're not in it alone.
No, you can feel that you're alone, but you're not.
Yeah, you're not.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. How do you think, if you look at yourself now, you talk about reflecting, and if you compare yourself today to who you were when you moved to Afghanistan, maybe before Mogadishu, I don't know. In what way are you different as a leader today?
I think I'm more reflective. I think I hope I'm more inclusive in terms of listening, engaging, taking joint ownership of processes, activities, and building that vision for a team to move forward to do things. I think the pressure of being younger and more experienced, of just delivering, and not taking pause has gone away, I would hope.
Yeah.
And I think the pressure cooker of field experience, and field experience in such settings has really helped me. Um, Again, I would hope to develop as an individual and then as a leader.
Mm. Which moments are hard for you as a leader? And I don't mean, only what's challenging outside, what's actually challenging inside you. It's really what is triggering you. In what moments do you feel, I need to do this or I need to do that? Because it can help other people to also look at, yeah, maybe I'm doing that too.
I think moments of change, when something is thrown at you to say, oh, here's something new, or here's something where people will be impacted, and you need to collaborate with others to come up with a plan of action. And certainly the United Nations system is going through a period of change at the moment that will necessitate that. And that is tough.
So how do you, what happens inside you and how do you act? What do
Um,
you feel like doing, which you don't do?
well, sometimes you feel like just screaming and saying, oh, this is frustrating and this is unfair and people will be hurt. And so you need to kind of still that and say, okay, logically, how do you move forward? But also emotionally, how do you move forward to make sure that whatever you're concocting, planning, implementing will be a responsible action? Being in human resources, you have a dual role, if you like, of both serving your personnel and making sure you look after their interests and whatever they're entitled to, and assist them to develop on their career journeys, um, and so forth. But you also have the responsibility to management, to advise management on strategy, on policy, on frameworks.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, Peter, because I think that's interesting. Because so often I get the questions, how do you lead upwards in an organization? And I'm sure there are things you want to do in Afghanistan that management doesn't prioritize. Yeah, how do you do that?
So leading upwards is not easy. And I've been lucky through my career to have had many very good managers who've listened to advice, who've sought advice. I've been fortunate to have some wisdom or advice to give. And sometimes when I don't have it, I make sure I consult others to come up with something to then bring forth. You need to earn the trust of senior managers and executives to know that they can trust you in terms of, and in the HR space, confidentiality and discretion. Some managers, senior managers, will come to you with their own thoughts on weaknesses or the challenges they're facing, and they will take you into their confidence. You need to keep that and assist them as much as you can, because again, when you're struggling with something, they're the ones you need to go to.
Yeah, I was just wondering there.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you, so where do you go with your questions and weaknesses and emotions?
So on occasion, then you go to your senior manager and you spell it out. You say, okay, now we're facing this. And as you were saying, well, they may not prioritize a certain action or area, then you need to come with a strong justification and
Mm.
then try to reason it through. And there are a lot of smart people out there. If you can get them to take the time and sit down, tremendous exciting things can happen. Your own idea of a course of action might be one, and then in that meeting, it will evolve to something even better. And that's cool. That's very good. But then there will also be tense moments in working with senior executives, and they're under tremendous pressure.
Yes.
And they've gotten their marching orders from the
Yeah.
corporate heads and whatnot. And that you're getting orders, just do it. And you also then need to recognize your role and say, well, then, yeah, I'm here to implement. I'm not here to question. And the full picture may not be something that I'm privy to. And that's okay. And then, but you raise the flags. You say, well, yes, I recognize that. But then you outline certain areas of concern, for example, and then see if it changes. And if it doesn't, you're fine with that. And you move ahead. But sometimes it will change. Oh, I didn't know that. Let's go back and let's loop back on that and see if we need to revise a proposed action.
It's interesting you talk about luck. To a certain degree, it can be luck that you get a good manager. I think it's also a matter of choice. I'd like to encourage people to choose to have a good manager. If you don't have, maybe you should move on. They say 50%, research shows that 50% of the people who quit a job quit because of their manager.
And I've certainly been in that situation where I've had managers and I decided to move on and look for something else. And then when something else
Yeah,
came, I moved on.
wise.
And it just, because I know what makes me thrive and I know what makes me contribute. And if those conditions aren't there and you first try, and then you say, well, no, then time to move on and do something different elsewhere. Yeah.
So wise. Okay, so I think we're getting close to wrap up. So Peter, you and I have been collaborating in a Courageous Leader program involving a group of people in Afghanistan to date. What is the greatest takeaway that you notice from that?
I think it's a good group of individuals. It's a mix of international and national colleagues, men and women, and some of them are heads of units, others are deputies in those teams, and they're all, I think, on very good journeys in terms of their own leadership development. The program has really helped them to perhaps explore new concepts, get new tools in their toolkit on how to deal with things, and really brought to the forefront how they think about the role they play as a leader and recognizing that, getting recognition for the fact that, yeah, I am a leader and I need to, and I can do it more deliberately, but I'm not in it on my own. I'm in it together with others. And there's a set of helpful tools for me to use as I do this. And I think that's a very positive thing. And that's what I'm kind of getting from the colleagues as they're going through the program, which is now more or less midway through.
What are you learning?
All of that and more. I'm also learning in terms of just learning about learning. So kind of discovering what is it like to take a group through something as important as leadership training. What are some of the challenges of that? How do you make the most of it? How do you ensure that they level up and feel empowered to level up as they go forward? And they're not the same. The people are different. So it's not one hammer hit over the head for all of them. It needs to be a whole set of things, and everyone will approach it differently. And that's a good thing, because we need that diversity in our organizations. We need that inclusion of different points of view and perspectives. Otherwise, we will not be able to remain relevant and do what we need to do in whatever the objective of the organization.
That's good to hear. So, Peter, are you happy to close today's session here?
I am. And we built on the first podcast episode by adding more content, more discussions, more in-depth exploration of these concepts that are so valuable to each and every one of us. And I know for me, I will certainly take it forward and make use of it. So thank you.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. I wanted to thank you so much for contributing, being open, letting us share your insights and experiences from all that amazing work that I know you're doing. And I'm pretty sure I know this conversation will stay with me. And my guess is that it will most likely also stay with our listeners. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
You do make a difference.
Thank you very much. And I really wish everyone well on their journeys. And I appreciate the support you've given and the wisdom you have shared. And I'll take that with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Before we wrap up, think about this. What's one small courageous action you can take today? And then, remember to grab your free guide to the Courageous Leader process. It's a simple way to see how the 4 steps fit together and start applying them today. You can download it at carriagemadesimple.com/free guide. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who might find it valuable. You can DM me on LinkedIn and Instagram at Margareta Kull, or visit our website at courageous-leader.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts and answer your questions in future episodes. That's it. Thank you for listening. Dare to make a difference. Before we wrap up, here is the legal bit. You know the fine print I need to mention. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. I'm just your companion on this journey. I'm not a licensed therapist, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals.